Hey guys, how's it going? It's Baggins here, and today we're going to be talking about mages in New World, specifically doing a mage sort of build guide video. As we did with the tank and healer video, this is going to focus on level 60 players, so people who are max level, but we are going to be starting sort of from the basics with attributes, weapon mastery, gems, items you can farm for, perks you want to be looking for, all of that good stuff. So if there's any particular sections you're interested in, you will be able to scrub through the video. Now, along with this video, I'm also going to be providing you guys with a written version of this guide, also on a New World database and our own personal website, resources.bagginstv.com. The resources website will have the sort of cliff notes and the abbreviation of the build. New World database will have the full sort of nitty-gritty. There will also be a PvE and PvP section. As you can see here, we're looking at the PvE guide. However, for the purposes of this video, and in order to keep it a bit more concise and not like a mega long sprawling video, we are just going to focus on PvP. But once again, if you are interested in PvE Mage, we'll have links in the description down below to the written version of the guides. They should be able to help you out just fine. But if you would like a video version, let me know in the comments down below. Before we go any further, I do want to give a big shout out to Trick or Tariku. He helped me a lot with putting this video together. If you guys don't know Trick, he is a super PvP mage. He played in the most recent sort of official New World tournament that was hosted and came first. So I believe he does know what he's talking about. If you guys have any sort of further questions about Mage and you're really interested in the build, I highly recommend you check out his channel. And again, we'll have links to that in the description down below. But yeah, let's jump into this video and explain what makes a mage, at least in a PvP context. So to start with, weapon choice. There are quite a few different weapons that you will see mages running in New World. Most of them are going to have one of these sort of magical or elemental weapons, and that's these weapons over here. So we got Fire Staff, not really Life Staff, that's for healers, Ice Gauntlet, and Void Gauntlet. Every now and again, you'll see some mages pair one of these weapons with a Rapier or a Blunderbuss, maybe even like Greatsword. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to talk about the sort of classic mage gameplay, and that just uses the magical weapons. So we've got Ice Gauntlet, Void Gauntlet, or we have Fire Staff, Ice Gauntlet. In this guide, we're going to be using these two different builds as sort of two different playstyles. So the Fire Staff and Ice Gauntlet is going to be more of sort of an aggressive DPS carry where you're looking to make plays and kill your opponent as fast as possible. And then the Ice Gauntlet, Void Gauntlet, although it can be played in a multitude of different ways, with this particular build, we're going to be showcasing it as a sort of support build for larger scale PvP fights where you're looking to buff your team's damage, weaken the enemies, reduce their incoming healing, and so on and so forth. So now that we've covered the weapon choice, we're going to look at our attributes, and the build that we're going to be using for both of these is 300 intelligence or more if you have the extra points, and 200 constitution. 300 intelligence, although the specific milestone is kind of crappy, 10% extra damage on the first hit on a full health target is very specific. It just gives us a nice chunk of damage, and I don't think there's too much benefit to going past 200 constitution unless you were to go all the way to 300, which you could do actually with the Ice Gauntlet, Void Gauntlet. If you want an alternative to be even more of like a support and tank player, you could look to do 300 constitution, 200 intelligence, but the recommendation for this build and for this video is going to be the 300, 200. 200 constitution just gives us a nice bit of extra armor and also a sizable hit point pool here. You can see I'm nearly at 13,000 HP, so we're just not going to get killed super quickly if a melee player jumps onto us. Now, as we mentioned in the notes for the video, you will need to pop attribute food in order to reach these thresholds. Some people often ask me, like, Baggins, I'm missing 40 points of intelligence, or like 20 constitution, 20 intelligence. How are you doing that? And that is because I'm using attribute food. You can see there is one attribute food that just gives you 40 straight intelligence and one that gives you 40 straight constitution, but these often end up being quite expensive. Right now, here on the Barry server, I was able to get this for only 20 gold each, so I would suggest taking a look at this, or also Glazed Bear with Vegetables or something like that is the name of the other one. But yeah, just take a look on your trading post. If you go over here and we take a look at the bag down here, attribute bonus food, and then either intelligence food, and you want to be looking at Glazed Bear with sauteed vegetables, that's 35 gold here. But if we go to the other side of it and we take a look at constitution food, we have the pork belly fried rice, and that's only 20 gold right now, so this was the best one that I could go for. Now, moving over to weapon mastery, there is a few different ways you can spin this, but from the Fire Staff perspective, I think this is the best build you can go with for now, as the game currently is. We look to take Flamethrower, Fireball, and Burnout for a little bit of escape. There's also a pretty good perk that you can take with Burnout, but more about that later on. People sometimes ask why are we not taking the extra points with the Fireball here, and that's because in the nature of PvP, people are often just moving around like all the time, 24/7. So it's very rare that you want the Fireball to be on the ground and then somebody's going to stay in that Fireball for the full duration. And then also the extra, like, 9 seconds in total, up from 6 seconds. It's kind of not really going to happen unless you're in really large-scale PvP, but this build is for smaller-scale PvP. For the same reason, we also don't take the Runes of Helios bonus, because you'll find often this just like procs randomly. You won't be able to track like exactly what's going on, and you'll shoot a fireball out, and then the Runes of Helios will appear under your character's feet, but then somebody will charge at you with a greatsword, and obviously you want to move away from that and, like, you know, ice shower them off, but now suddenly your Runes of Helios is stuck over there. So yeah, it's just hard to get value out of this in the way that like most PvP fights break down. So again, thinking about smaller scale PvP, we're not going to bother with the Runes of Helios, and we're also not going to bother with the increased duration for the Fireball. That being said, Flamethrower is a huge damage tool if used correctly, and Burnout also just gives us a lot of extra escape, and then the passives all sort of contribute to being able to do more damage as well. Now moving over to the Ice Gauntlet abilities, as we've mentioned at the start of the guide, Ice Gauntlet is featured in both of these builds, so Ice Gauntlet Fire Staff looking like more damage orientated, and then Ice Gauntlet Void Gauntlet looking to be more supportive. So this is obviously the damage orientated build here using Ice Spike, Ice Storm, and Ice Shower. Now in order to achieve Ice Spike, you're generally going to have to set it up with some form of CC, and that's either going to be from your teammates or yourself. One quick way that you can lock down somebody for an Ice Spike is to hit them with an Ice Storm, and then go ahead and use the Heavy Freeze here. So heavy attacks will root a target for 1 second if they're standing in Ice Storm or have Frostbite, which is just like basically being hit by any ice ability. So for example, this guy here, we'd drop the Ice Storm on him, then do a heavy attack that would root them in place, and then really quickly we can go ahead and do the Ice Spike for big damage. Now one thing that isn't immediately obvious with Ice Spike is you can detonate it before it goes to its full length duration, so you don't always have to be hitting somebody from like this far away. You can get a bit closer and then pop the Ice Spike. So say for example, actually we should just say this before we do it. What you want to do is just do left click. So after you cast Ice Spike, you left click like when you're ready to detonate it. So if we try and do the combo here again, and then we'd heavy attack, and then we'd Ice Spike, and then left click like basically straight away. And I still missed that because, you know, I'm a bad mage player, but you guys get the idea. If you left click while the Ice Spike is going out, let's see if we can hit it this time. Come on, Baggins. There we go. You can actually you know, like detonate it early and do the big chunk of damage, which is the like end spike right there, and that's what you want to be hitting people with to get the max damage. Ice Shower can obviously be used as well as a pairing, so you can just go ahead, Ice Shower them, then root them into the place. You will have to be like paying attention to their stamina. This guy's getting upset now because we've Ice Spiked him one too many times, but you will have to pay attention to their stamina. Quite often you'll hit somebody with a freeze, heavy attack them, and then they will just be dodge rolling to like on the spot to avoid taking any damage. So pay attention to their stamina. Once you've got them out of stamina, that's going to be like the time to go for the Ice Spike basically. Now looking at the Void Gauntlet, Ice Gauntlet weapon mastery. For the Void Gauntlet, we're going to be taking more supportive options, so that includes Scream, which applies a root to the enemy, and it can also apply a hefty healing debuff if you take the perk, and you should be taking the perk. We've also got Oblivion, which is a pretty nasty tool. It applies Weaken to the enemy. It empowers your team so they do more damage. Weaken means the enemy does less damage, and it also gives your teammates stamina and yourself stamina every second that you stand in it. So this is a huge tool to pop in a team fight. And then finally we've got Orb of Decay, which provides some healing, although it's not going to be much because you don't have any points into focus. It also applies Rend, which increases the damage the target takes, and it can apply a slow as well if they already had a debuff on them. So yeah, really nasty tool here. Does some extra damage, applies Rend, applies a slow. You've got a damage boost for your team, you've got weakening the enemies, you've got rooting them, and you've got anti-heal. Void Gauntlet, just a great support tool to sort of enable your team to do more damage and set up kills in PvP scenarios. And here we have the weapon mastery for the Ice Gauntlet when paired with the Void Gauntlet, so the most sort of support mage build. And as you can see, we've swapped Ice Spike out for Ice Tomb, or Entombed here. Ice Block is what I like to call it. Basically, the reason for this is so that we can go in deep with our Void Gauntlet, scream at them, and Oblivion, but you do have to be be next to the enemy to do this. And then if we find ourselves in trouble, we can use Ice Block just to regenerate a little bit of stamina so we can dodge back out of there. Now, one thing that's interesting about this build is we've opted to not take Ultimate Chill. If you guys still want to pick this up for a bit of extra damage, you can do it, but this only applies to yourself. Previously in the past, I'll take my camera off here, this effect used to apply to like everybody. So you would hit the Ice Storm onto the enemy and then they would take more ice damage from everybody, but now they only take more ice damage from you. And again, since we're kind of like more support here, we are still looking to do damage, but we are more support orientated. We've opted to drop that in favor of just taking passives here that keep us alive and allow us to spam our abilities more often. And when it comes to equip load, as we mentioned in the written version of the guide, we're going to be recommending light equip load for the Ice Gauntlet and Fire Staff, and then we're going to be recommending medium for the Ice Gauntlet and Void Gauntlet. The reasoning behind this is because with the Fire Staff and Ice Gauntlet, we're sort of more skirmishing, we're more like small scale PvP, and we also want to do like more damage. Again, we're just trying to hit as hard as possible, and light armor, as you can see down there, gives us a base damage 20% increase, so we get 20% extra damage, and we also get the incredible dodge roll as well, which is so good for just moving out of damage and keeping yourself alive. Honestly, sometimes the dodge roll feels better than just having extra armor, because why even bother taking damage in the first place when you can just dodge out of it? And the way that we achieve getting into this equipment load is by running a light helmet, a medium chest, light gloves, light legs, and light boots. So it's pretty much everything is light, but the chest is medium. And again, this is just so we can stay just under that threshold of popping into medium, but we get some extra armor rating from having a medium chest versus a light chest. Now for the Ice Gauntlet Void Gauntlet build, we're going to be going for a medium equip load instead, and that is because we want to get that third bonus down there, the outgoing crowd control debuffs, 10% increased duration. Now you might see down in heavy, you can actually get a 20% increased outgoing duration, but currently I just feel like heavy still feels kind of crap to use, even though it's seen a recent buff. I still just feel like heavy is it just doesn't feel good to be in, but maybe you guys might prefer to go in heavy. If you are going to do that, just run every single piece of armor in the heavy load. But if you do want to play medium, the usual sort of formula that you'll go for to maximize, again, armor rating, but just staying under the threshold of going into heavy, is a heavy helmet, heavy chest, medium gloves, light legs, and medium boots. The perks on these gears, don't get too excited about them. This is just for the purpose of showing the equip load. Again, if you guys are finding this a bit hard to take in, you're like, heavy, medium, what was it? Heavy, medium, or heavy, medium. It's all written down in the guide. So yeah, just go check out the guides. Links in the description down below if you are having a bit of trouble tracking the information that we're giving out here. Now in the next section of the guide, we're going to talk about perks on your weapons, your armor, and your jewelry. Now perks do play a pretty big deal in sort of enabling you to do more damage and take less damage. Because Mage is not my primary sort of role that I play, I'm not fully best in slot, or even in some cases close to best in slot for getting the ultimate Poggers Mage gear. But again, we spent quite a bit of time talking to Trick about what he thinks is best in slot for mages. So with that in mind, let's start off with the Fire Staff. What are the best perks we can look for on the Fire Staff? Well, one of the first perks that you want to get on the Fire Staff is Flame Attunement. It doesn't necessarily have to be Flame Attunement, but it is going to play in with the gems and your ring, which we'll talk about later on. Some form of Elemental Attunement, because this procs with every other hit of the Flamethrower, basically. So as you can see here with my less than ideal Fire Staff, we do have the Flame Attunement perk, and when we hit the enemy, we're going to get that little bit of extra damage to pop up there, that 244. And if we go ahead and do the Flamethrower, you can see it popping up every now and again, the 226, until we get rid of all the health from the dummy. So yeah, it actually does pop up fairly often. Every 1 second, the Flame Attunement can come back up, which is going to be pretty nuts. And then if you really push this build to the limit in terms of taking the Runeglass Gems to activate again the ignited thing, and you do the extra fire damage with all the Runeglass Gems in your armor, and you also do fire damage on your ring, it can actually be a pretty absurd amount of damage. So Flame Attunement, definitely going to be a perk that you want to look to get. Other perks that we recommend you go for are Keenly Jagged and Keen or Vicious. And again, this just plays more into the Flamethrower, but also just making all of your Fire Staff abilities hit extra hard. Some people like to go for Enchanted on the Fire Staff, but one thing that you have to bear in mind with Enchanted, and I actually, the Fire Staff that I commonly use has Enchanted as well, but a weakness that I find behind it is it's only with the light and heavy attacks. So this doesn't apply to any of your abilities, whereas Flame Attunement does. It applies to your light and heavy attacks, and it also applies to your abilities as well. Same with Keen, same with Vicious, same with Keenly Jagged. So yeah, Enchanted, even though you may have been told in the past that this is a good perk, like back in the old school days of New World, things have changed these days, and Enchanted no longer really considered best in slot for that reason. Things are looking pretty similar with the Ice Gauntlet as well. We're looking for Keen, Vicious, and Frost attunement. One thing that's worth bearing in mind, if you are running the support version of the Frost Gauntlet, you want to get Deadly Frost instead. And probably drop the Keen and Vicious, because those don't apply to like your Ice Storm, your Ice. In fact, we can just show you here in the game. If I go ahead and slap the Ice Gauntlet back on, none of these abilities down here can actually crit. There's no way to get a critical Ice Storm. There's no way to get a critical Ice Shower. And I don't think this ability can crit either, but I think getting critical Entombed smashes is not really going to be the play. So it will only apply to your light and heavy attacks. And for that reason, probably just want to take Refreshing Move so you can have your abilities come back off cooldown more often. One perk that is particularly strong with the support mage build, though, is Deadly Frost. And this is because it lowers the cooldown of Ice Shower fairly significantly. I mean, 14%, it's going to be better than it is on your armor. And the more often you can Ice Shower, the better that is going to be for your team. So that combined with Refreshing Move, meaning you can spam your abilities more often, so you can apply more slows, more roots, and more rends, and just generally be more supportive as a result. With the Void Gauntlet, we just have one set of perks that we're really looking for. That is Putrefying Scream, Plague Crits, and Keen. Like I said, I'm not like fully decked out as a mage player, but I have managed to get myself something pretty close here, so we can take a look. So yeah, as we can see here, we have Vicious, Plague Crits, and Putrefying Scream. Putrefying Scream is a powerhouse of an ability, reduces target's healing by 40%, and then on top of that, we got Critical Strikes when they're below 50%, also reduce the target's healing. This does cap out at 50%, but it's worth stacking them just to make sure that that opponent that you're going on is debuffed as possible. Vicious is a little bit less ideal because we want to get Keen, really, and the reason behind that is we want to activate Refreshing Precision as often as possible. 5% cooldown reduction on all abilities on critical hit. So if we can send our orb into a big pack of enemies and then pop it and get some big crits, we can get a lot of cooldown reduction and have all our abilities come, back off cooldown really quickly and then just go again, basically. For perks on the rest of the gear here, we're not going to go too in depth, but armor is basically Resilient or Bust. You really want to get Resilient because it reduces incoming damage effectively. You can basically think of this as like a mandatory PvP perk most of the time. It is somewhat acceptable to maybe only go with 4 pieces instead of 5, but generally stacking as much Resilient as you can. Elemental Evasion I do think is going to be particularly good as if you're playing against lots of mages, and I do think mages are on the rise because of the Fire Staff thing that we talked about. This is going to be a good perk to take. Physical Evasion also sees a lot of strength because there's a tremendous amount of bows and muskets in Outpost Rush right now. And then Freedom, Refreshing, Shirking Fortification, Refreshing Evasion, and potentially even Refreshing Ward, although I will say that this is probably only for the Ice Gauntlet, Void Gauntlet support build, because you're going to be more up close and in the enemy's face, so Refreshing Ward will proc more often. These are generally the armor perks that we're going to be looking for. When it comes to the amulet, I think health, stamina recovery, and then any of these perks that we list here are also going to be good, but health and stamina recovery feels like it is like the mandatory PvP perks. Extra health, just going to keep you alive. Stamina recovery is a pretty nuts perk, actually. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I got it at my amulet here. Yeah, when you are hit while below 50%, you get a big chunk of stamina, and it's every 30 seconds this can happen as well, which is pretty disgusting. So you just get like almost all of your stamina back every half minute. Really, really good. Definitely one that you want to be looking for. The third perk, I've got Flame Protection here, which again going to be good against all those Fire Staffs, so I think this is pretty ideal for me right now, but maybe Thrust Protection, Slash Protection, or just Refreshing is going to be good for you. On the ring, we're going to be looking for something like this, so Hearty is going to be the staple perk if you're in the sort of Ice Gauntlet, Fire Staff, Light Armor build. If you're in medium, you don't need Hearty as you do get 3 dodges anyway, but Hearty gives you access to a triple dodge roll. We're still in actually medium here, but it does give you access to a triple dodge roll when you're in the light equip load. And then some other good perks to look for are going to be ice damage or fire damage, or even potentially void damage if you really want to capitalize on that Void Gauntlet DPS. And then refreshing or a keen awareness, also a good one. Refreshing evasion or even refreshing ward for the Ice Gauntlet, Void Gauntlet build that we talked about. Now, before we go into the next section, I do want to talk about getting certain perks on your weapons versus your armor. And this does include Deadly Frost, Unending Thaw, Empowering Fireball, all of these sort of ability perks. They are more powerful when you get them on the weapon. One good example we have here is having Putrefying Scream on your armor, so it reduces incoming healing by 28% versus having it on your Void Gauntlet, which reduces incoming healing by 50%. That is a pretty significant increase in the incoming healing debuff, but you can only have one ability perk on your weapon, whereas you can have, an ability perk here and here, and here, and here, and here. So you've got a lot more real estate for ability perks on your armor, and only like one per each weapon. So which are the most important perks that you want to get on your weapons? Well, as we mentioned in the guide here, Deadly Frost for the Ice Gauntlet if you're running the support build, and Putrefying Scream for the Void Gauntlet, again, in the sort of support build. However, with the Ice Gauntlet Fire Staff sort of damage build, there's no particular perk that becomes so much more powerful when you put it on the weapon that it's worth replacing any of the sort of previous perks that we listed as best in slot. So Elemental Attunement, Keenly Jagged, Keen or Vicious, like having Empowering Fireball or any of that, I don't think it's worth taking those over replacing one of these perks on the Fire Staff, and the same can be said with the Ice Gauntlet as well. Keen Vicious Frost Attunement is going to provide more damage than having Unending Thaw, even though you do want to have that perk, you really do want to have Unending Thaw, but just get it on your armor instead of on the weapon. So hopefully this makes sense to you guys. Right, so that was a lot of talk about perks, and you know, this is the ideal and that's the ideal, but you might be thinking like, well, Baggins, how the heck am I going to find all this gear? Well, as we did with the tank and healer guide, I've listed and I've gone and done my research for some like pretty good drops that you can get out there. Now, we're not going to go over every single drop here because there is quite a few that we talk about. One thing that is good to know about the PvP side of things is you actually have a pretty solid source of gear here with the PvP rewards track. Once you get past track 5, you're going to start seeing some pretty nice items. So let me see, can I find the information, emblems and rewards? So yeah, after we get past bronze, named equipment starts getting added, and then once you get past 20, prestige equipment, which I think is just like the legendary version of the named stuff. But either way, working on this is going to give you some pretty good rewards. So always keep an eye out for any weapons or armor that pop up that we've talked about that have the relevant perks we discussed. In particular, the Champion's gear, so the Champion's Ring, the Champion's Amulet, and the Champion's Earring are pretty nice and will slot into most builds. Unfortunately, when it comes to the Fire Staff and the Ice Gauntlet, there's no real like guaranteed way to farm Flame Attunement and Ice Attunement, so you're going to have to craft those or buy those, but we do list some sort of backup weapons that you can grab in the meantime whilst you're working towards that best in slot. Now finally, the last thing we have to talk about when it comes to items for your builds are the gems and the Heartrune. Now, at time of recording, this patch has not come out yet, but we have seen on the PTR there is a new Heartrune available called Bile Bomb, and I do think Bile Bomb is probably going to be the play that you want to go for with the Ice Gauntlet, Void Gauntlet sort of support build. So hopefully by the time this video has come out, this patch has dropped and the Bile Bomb is there. And if that is the case, for Ice Gauntlet, Void Gauntlet, you probably want to be rocking this thing here, the Cunning Heartrune of Bile Bomb. It's got a slow, it's got stamina regeneration exhaust, so people regenerate stamina less like often, and it also has a healing debuff as well in an AoE area for 8 seconds, which is really, really good. So yeah, this really plays in nicely to the sort of support kit and what we want to achieve. And then on the damage side of things, and this is for the Fire Staff and Ice Gauntlet, it could also work with the Ice Gauntlet, Void Gauntlet as well, because you are getting pretty close to the enemy, and that is the Brutal Heartrune of Detonate. This one in particular increases the explosion damage even more with the escalating explosion. One cool piece of tech that maybe not everybody knows is you can pop detonate while you're inside of Ice Block, or you can pop detonate and then go into Ice Block and it still goes off and does damage. So bear that in mind as a piece of tech, but if you do want to consistently land this, again, you're going to need to sort of apply the same methodology that you do with Ice Spike, where you need to root the enemy first and get them out of their stamina before you can 100% confirm that detonate damage. Now moving on to gems, we're going to cover this in 2 different parts. So we're going to talk about normal gems and then Runeglass Gems, depending on how advanced and how far through you are. So with normal gems, I think when it comes to weapons, one of the best like gems that you can put in the Ice Gauntlet is going to be the Gambit Gem, which is an Opal Gem, so a tier 5 or a cut pristine Opal. And this is because you don't really want to convert any damage away. So you'll see with my Fire Staff, I'm using a Aquamarine Gem here, and we're going to go into that in a second. But with Ice Gauntlet, you just want your damage to be like ice, basically. So, and that is to take advantage of Ultimate Chill. Now, obviously, this is with the Ice Gauntlet Fire Staff setup, whereas currently we're showing the Ice Gauntlet, Void Gauntlet setup. But yeah, in general, just doing as much ice damage as possible to capitalize on Ultimate Chill, because they take 25% more damage from ice if they're hit by an Ice Gauntlet ability, and then it also like really scales up the damage of Ice Storm as well with Punishing Storm. So just make sure that you dodge before you cast an ability, and then you'll get the extra damage bonus from the Opal in your Ice Gauntlet. Now, as we alluded to with the Fire Staff, it's not quite as straightforward. You can can do also an opal gem in here as well, but I've actually found from doing some like numbers testing myself, so I spent about, I don't know, like half an hour, maybe closer to an hour, sort of like messing around with these training dummies over here, hitting them, and then writing down the numbers, and then putting in an opal gem, dodging, and then hitting them and writing down the numbers. And I found actually that the tier 2 gems seemed to give me the most damage out of everything. And this was, you know, I thought maybe we could do this and apply the ultimate chill, but they did take that away. If you guys don't know, the ultimate chill like disappears when you weapon swap now. And this also applies to like teammates as well, so teammates can't give you the extra 25% damage either. But even despite that, despite we're not getting the extra ice damage, I still found that using an elemental conversion gem in my fire staff managed to give me the most damage out of everything. Now, the reason why this is happening is because some like weird scaling that Amazon do in the game, where they try and keep all of the tier 2 to tier 5 elemental conversion gems equal across the board. So you can see we get a 200% intelligence scaling off the tier 2 gem. Now, if at this point the information is just like going through your brain and you're getting like the, you know, like it's just a blank loading circle, don't worry, I'm kind of the same. I don't really understand how this works either, but all I can say is I tested the numbers, and the tier 2 elemental conversion gem consistently give me the highest damage. And if you're running a ring that gives you like bonus ice damage, or a ring that gives you bonus fire damage, it seemed to like even more ramp up that extra bonus, even more than like an opal or anything else. There was one other good video that I took a look at. This only came up like a few days ago. It's from Death Metal, and he did some sort of gem testing as well. So if you want to look more in depth at all of this stuff, we'll put links to these websites in the description down below. But for me, so far, the actual highest damage that I found to go into the fire staff, the gem that we want to go for, is the damage conversion. So it's a cut flawed aquamarine, but you could also do like a cut flawed amethyst or a cut flawed topaz, just any sort of elemental damage conversion gem, but like the lowest tier version gave me the most damage. Now, thankfully, things get a little bit easier with the Void Gauntlet. Putting an elemental conversion gem in the Void Gauntlet doesn't really work too well, because most of the damage that you do with the Void Gauntlet doesn't scale. So this will always just be void damage with your Oblivion. The damage over time is always going to be void damage. You can't convert the damage over time to be something else. And the same with your orb as well. The dots that pop up will always just be void damage as well. So only like with your direct hits are you gonna get like a conversion. So for that reason, it is just a good idea to run an opal to just like get a little bit extra damage after you dodge also. When it comes to basic gems in your armor, there are two gems that I like to most commonly run, and that is the diamond, because it gives you physical and elemental damage absorption, or the malachite, because that gives you elemental and physical damage absorption. I find that these are just like the most well-rounded, most balanced gems, because you're going to be taking like a variety of different damage types in PvP. It's not always just going to be the same thing. So your best bet is to hedge against everything and take a gem that sort of balances out both of them. However, if you do find that there's one particular enemy that you're always facing off, and right now for me in Outpost Russian 3v3 Arena, it's just spears and bows and muskets and blunderbusses. They all do thrust damage, so it might be wise for you to go ahead and take like a couple of gem slots, maybe more if you find it's just like almost exclusively just that. It'll come down to your own personal position and how you find, but yeah, thrust damage absorption, which is an emerald gem. I currently rock that on my helmet and my chest, but maybe you guys might find that it's more greatswords, in which case a moonstone will give you slash damage absorption. This is going to come down to your own sort of personal preference and what you're facing off against. Now lastly, moving on to Runeglass Gems, and which gems do you want to have in your weapons and your armor? Well, as we mentioned previously with the flamethrower build, the Runeglass of Ignited Opal, or it could be the Runeglass of Frozen Opal, or the Runeglass of Electrified Opal, or whatever the Void one is. But basically, it gives you the extra damage when you dodge, but it also has your hits inflict burn, dealing 8% fire damage per second for 2 seconds. And this triggers off of the flamethrower very consistently, so you can have a ton of extra damage going out from your flamethrower by putting one of these into your fire staff. You could have it be ice damage. Again, if you're running a ring that gives you bonus ice damage, or you're running a ring that gives you bonus void damage, run the relevant gem to sort of co-align with that and increase the damage. But definitely taking one of these, I think, in the fire staff to get that huge flamethrower damage is a good idea. When it comes to the ice gauntlet, as we mentioned here in the guide, A lot of the damage over time effects, so Ice Storm and Ice Shower, none of those can actually proc the bonus effect of the Runeglass of Frozen Opal. So the only thing that's actually going to activate the Runeglass bonus ability is going to be Ice Spike. But I do find that Ice Spike, you just want to do as much damage as possible at that moment in time. But one thing that maybe you guys are not aware of is that the difference between like a Runeglass gem and a normal gem, if I take my camera off here, you can see 15% extra damage while your stamina is not full, whereas this is only 12% damage when your stamina is not full. Now obviously you get the extra bonus effect, so with the Void Gauntlet we're getting the 8% ice damage per second for 2 seconds, but I find that it's better to front load the damage and still just stick with a normal Opal in your Ice Gauntlet for that big Ice Spike damage. However, with the Void Gauntlet, I still find it beneficial enough because you don't need to be like spiking damage as much as you do with the Ice Gauntlet. Again, we're looking for more support, so just throwing the orb into a big pack of enemies and then popping it and getting that little bit of extra like ice damage on the dot, and the same with the Scream as well. Also doing that bit of extra ice damage I think is more beneficial than just like the ordinary Opal gem there. Finally, Runeglass Gems in your armor. I think you want to take the corresponding Runeglass, which is going to increase the relevant damage. So for example, just looking at the diamonds here, we have the Runeglass of Ignited Diamond, so when you put it into your armor, we get that second effect, we get the physical and elemental damage absorption, but your fire attacks do an additional 2% damage. Or we have your ice attacks do an additional 2% damage, or we have your void attacks do an additional 2% damage. So whichever one you want to lean into the most, I probably recommend the Fire Staff for the Flamethrower extra bonus, so we would take the Runeglass of Ignited Diamond, and just taking a few of these, and maybe taking a few Malachites as well to balance things out. Potentially, you could also do the Thrust Gems, but at that point, it's going to be getting really expensive because every time a new weapon is like rises to the top and you need to spec against it. My best advice would probably be to take about 3 of these in your armor and then leave the other 2 slots like we do here for just like normal gems and have those for specifically whatever the meta weapon is at the time. So 3 Runeglass here as we're like kind of working our way towards and then the other 2 just being like specifically against the damage type. And the 3 Runeglass that you take, you want them to be the relevant damage bonus, so increased fire damage, increased ice damage, or increased void damage. However, if you really just do want to go all out and pop off, just like rock a bunch of diamond / malachite with the extra fire damage, and then you can have like a 10% extra fire damage if you go across all of your armor, which combined with the Flame Attunement and combined with the Runeglass Fire Gem is really going to make your Flamethrower just do some disgustingly powerful damage. Now the last thing to talk about in the guide is tips and tricks, but this video I think has gone long enough, and as we mentioned at the start, so much of this information was given to me by Trick, so I want to shout out to him and encourage you guys that if you do like the Mage gameplay and you want to see more of it and you want to learn more about how to play it, go check out the guy himself because he helped me put so much of this guide together. He does focus more on PvP, so the PvE side of things, I'm sure you could like convince him to sort of give you his PvE knowledge. But yeah, we'll put links to Trick's YouTube and Twitch channel in the description down below, as well as to like the build and of course the links to the written guides. But with that being said, I hope you guys found this video useful. If there is any further comments that you have, let me know down below, or come into the Twitch stream. We're going to be live most hours of the day. By the time this video comes out, fresh start servers will be here. So yeah, I'm going to be live like so many hours every day. Again, links to my stream and all the other stuff in the description down below. Subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. Like the video if you enjoyed it. And I'll see you guys all in the next one.